Welcome to How to Run Profitable Retreats. I am Lainey Cavazos, retreat strategist and host of the show for coaches, entrepreneurs, and transformational leaders who want to design retreats that actually make money. If you've ever put your heart into a retreat only to walk away exhausted or worse, broke, you are not alone. This podcast is here to change that. Each week, I'll bring you stories, strategies, and expert insights to help you create meaningful, transformational retreats that also support your business, your lifestyle, and your bottom line. Let's make your next retreat not just powerful, but profitable. Hello, welcome to another podcast episode of How to Run Profitable Retreats. I'm your host, Lainey Cavazos, and I'm so excited to bring to you today, Vanessa. But before we even go there, I want to just ask you for one favor. If you like these episodes, please subscribe so we can share this message with more people. We want more people to be running on profitable retreats that get clients back. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here, Vanessa. And just so you know a little bit about Vanessa, she is the founder of Eden and Empire, a membership community helping Christian women entrepreneurs build businesses that honor both their divine calling and their desire for impact. With 8 years of experience in business strategy and faith integration, Vanessa has helped countless women create clear messaging, sustainable systems, and meaningful growth. Vanessa, thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, thank you.
Right. Vanessa, I think today we want to be talking about personal branding, and I am so excited about this topic because I am so passionate about it. But first, let's just maybe let's take about what do you think or consider is like personal branding?
Yeah,
So for anyone who's not very aware of what personal branding means.
yeah. So first of all, I am so excited. I feel like I don't get to talk about this topic enough. So to me, a personal brand is allowing your audience to get to know you, like your clients, the people that you are trying to connect with, to know you and your business. And I'm huge on your business isn't separate from who you are. I really believe that it is a huge piece of you. So you are your brand. You know, when I go to a store, if I see someone that I know, they know me potentially for my business and vice versa. So it is something that I believe that you connect on a deeper level with people. When people know who you are, they build that trust. And I think that a lot of businesses are recognizing the importance of connecting with people on a deeper level, and more often than not, the easiest way to do that is just showing up as your most genuine self and letting people kind of know that piece of you. I also think there's a level of social media or just this internet online driven world that people are craving that authenticity. I feel like there's not another word for that, but just craving real people and real connection and honesty, because we're always trying to be sold to in the online space. And I also think that a lot of people put on just this highlight reel and this front, and it allows people just to connect on a more deeper level. So there's so many different facets of why I believe that being who you are and showcasing that through your business is important. But to me, I think that it's almost imperative that businesses have that in some way, shape, or form.
I love this, Vanessa. And yeah, and I think you're touching on a very important point that is big brands are moving towards personal branding. And I don't know, I would love to have your intake. I have these conception that a big piece of these movement towards personal branding has to do a lot with AI, right? It also it has to do a lot with okay, so now emails can be written super fast in in a couple of seconds with ChatGPT, websites, copy, but your personality, your experiences, who you are, actually doesn't it can't be done by AI, right? So sharing your stories, right? Even if you use AI as a tool, right? But sharing who you are, being authentic, being vulnerable makes a huge difference,
Right.
in your business. What do you think about it?
Yes. So I feel like even more importantly now, because we have access to AI, it is important either to figure out how to integrate your personality into that, because I feel like it's not realistic to think that people don't use it. Because I think that's just a general consensus is that it's available. And I believe that it's a smart way to run your business in a lot of different capacities. But I do believe that people are going to see through that. They're going to be able, I mean, people can tell already when something's AI generated. And I think it's because people rely so much on just the AI to try to mimic, or I think a lot of times we think, okay, it's the expert. This is probably saying things in the way that it should be said, when in reality, you still have to put your spin on it. You're the expert in whatever it is that you are, going to AI for. You should be the expert in whatever your field is. So it's not a replacement. It's to me, it's just another tool in my tool belt. But I do believe that people are seeing the importance of it because of things like AI. I think that businesses are um, also just seeing that because we live in such a social media driven world, that it's really easy to get diluted in all of that, because people are trying to mimic other people. They're trying to take on other people's personas. And ultimately, your audience is just going to notice that. I think it's not sustainable for us to try to be this different version of ourselves. Because when, somebody comes to you for whatever it is that you're promoting, they're going to see right through the fact that you either don't know what you're talking about, or your lifestyle is different, or, a million different things. But I think that it is probably one of the most important things because of that. You're just going to connect on a deeper level.
This is so interesting that you bring this up, because I truly, truly agree. Even if I use AI as a tool, I don't see it as a replacement of me, for sure. And I always go and check my emails and I rewrite them. And then sometimes I just have to this does not sound like me. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Are you making these up?
I would never use this word.
Right. Exactly. Right. And we need to understand that piece when it comes to how we communicate and how we leverage these tools, because the reality is that it's not going anywhere. It's propelling our growth in massive ways. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah. But also, I think something that came through for me right now is when you mentioned that there's this whole piece of people using an AI and then making themselves in a place where they might not be in their business yet. And let me just go deeper into this for everyone who's listening. So I was listening to a podcast episode today. I listen to a lot of podcast episodes. As much as I put episodes out, I listen to more, right? And I read tons of books. But I was listening to this podcast episode with Darren Lee and Laura Costa, and they were talking about, how you can make 1.5 million sales with not sales calls or ads and whatnot. But the really piece that stuck out for me was Lara was saying, okay, so you're trying to mimic a company that has been there for many, many years, that has tested their program, their products over and over again. So now they're choosing, and she's an expert on LinkedIn. So they have now 5 different social media channels, but the reality, they grew, and then first they used one channel, and then once their messaging, their offerings were ready, then they went and then they expanded to the other social media channels. And a lot of entrepreneurs are starting in the space of I need to be everywhere, and it's just quite overwhelming. It's not tested, and you're trying to mimic someone who might have already now 10, 12 different offers, different ascension levels and lead magnets and whatnot, when you actually need to start with one problem, one solution.
Yep.
And become the expert and the authority there. And then you can expand because your audience is going to grow with you.
Yes.
But no, I think I see this a lot. People are they look at my, my website and my funnels and all the things are coming through, and they're like, I want everything here. And I'm like, no. We do this in phases. I'm like, one thing, we test it, we run it. I'm a big fan of market research. And then from there, we can go into this space of what's next.
Yeah.
But your personal brand is so connected with who you are. And who you are is going to shift in time. You're not going to become that. You're not going to be the same person in 5 or 10 years, right? So I don't know, like I would say in this phase, when we're really talking about like your personal brand, you need to understand that that is going to shift. And because it's going to change and it's going to evolve as you evolve, how can you really represent who you are authentically into this space? And I think here, like a question that comes like, you know, you work, like I love niching down. It's like one of my biggest like favorite things ever. I just think, like, you know, with 8 billion people in the world, there's enough people so you can niche down as much as you want.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know you focus working with Christian women. So like, I would love to tell me, like, if you can tell me a little bit about like, how does that look like in the space of like, you know, as a personal brand? Like, how does that relate, for like example, for like the values of their brands, of your brand? And like, you know, how does we use that as part of like our personal branding?
Yeah. So my mind is going a million miles a minute because I have like all the things that I want to talk to you about based on what you just said. And I feel like for first and foremost, I think that the biggest thing that businesses do that is can be harmful is trying to be something that they're not, for one. And second of all, is that they are trying to just 100% copy the blueprint of another business when it was intended, our businesses aren't intended to be that way. I think that it's really hard because we don't have this roadmap that tells us if you do this, then this will happen. And then once this happens, you need to do this. Like, yes, we have some, trainings and coaches and all of these things, but it doesn't 100% mean that you're going to have the same success as them. And so, these companies that come, or not company, well, sometimes companies, but brands or businesses, they have attained that level of success, but they don't see all of the things that happened prior to that for them to have a million lead magnets and all of these tested things, and they're making multiple 7 figures. Like, they probably are doing all of those things, have done all of those things, but it's not. Why are we comparing our chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 50, right? Like, we're not at that place. And I think we have this world that we live in that is always in the mentality of like, you need to grow and you need to grow fast. And for some people that's okay. And maybe this contradicts, what some people think, but I feel like it's okay for you to grow at your own pace. It is okay for you to grow slower. That doesn't mean that you're a failure. You're not, behind if it doesn't happen right away for you. Because I think for a lot of people, it's not sustainable for them to be running 10 different lead magnets and have 5 social medias. What you don't see is that they probably have a team behind the scenes that are running all of those things for them. And, on that end of things too, when you relate it to like a personal brand, I think that, well, what I do with the women that I coach is the first thing that we start off with is having a really strong foundation. So you have to be really grounded in who you are, because I feel like you as a brand, you have to understand who you are in order to know who your audience is and to connect with them on a deeper level. Then you're going to know how to serve them, and everything else that comes after that will be so much easier. You're going to know what offers are going to resonate on a deeper level with them. You're going to know what to say no to. You're going to know how to niche down, how to do just all of these different things, but it stems from knowing who you are. And I think that most often most business owners create the business out of a need, but then it has some success and it's like at full speed. So then we don't take time to process as we grow and evolve, like, what does this look like? Should I niche down? Because I think people also, on another note of what you were saying, they want to be everything to everyone. And they feel like, I have to offer this service, or I have to do this and this and this because I see other people doing it. And I don't want to alienate another revenue source, when in reality, when you niche down, you actually make more money. So, sorry, that was like, I probably.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And now my brain is going crazy because, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to talk about so many things, right? And it's amazing when you get to like meet people for like-minded and whatnot. But the first thing I want to bring down for everyone who's listening here, just listen to what Vanessa said about being very strong on your foundations. Yeah. How important it is to have the foundations straight. And if we even think about it, like of who you are, yes, 100%. Then you need to have the foundations of who you serve, right? You need to be very clear about that. You also need to be very clear that that is going to shift and evolve with time. So if you do your ideal client work at the beginning of your business, and then 5 years later, you have not reviewed it, there is a mistake there, right? It's constantly changing. I review my ideal client every 3 months.
Yes.
And I might be a little bit on the crazy side, but
I feel like I'm like that too. I'm like, oh, wait, should I serve this? But it's because you're growing and evolving that sometimes, well, also as you're going through your business, you see what works and what doesn't work. You are growing as a person, so that changes. And I agree with that 100%.
yeah. So, like really understanding these part of like the foundations, I think it's so crucial. And so many times we forget because we get into reactive mode of our business, right? And I can see it with my new business. Like I have this company and then we have the We Summit company. And I can see it, right? Sometimes we have to be extremely reactive because it's growing so fast. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to take a step back and just go back to the foundations, right? And then see, is these efforts and actions that we're taking, are they aligned with the big goal, right? With the vision for 3 years, for 5 years, for 10 years, and then make decisions on what is the best place for us to use our energy. And, like who do we serve? And is the products that we're launching actually serving the clients that we have? Right? The people are showing up in front of our door, or is it not? Right? Like a lot of reflection when it comes to who do you become, who do you serve, and how do you show up.
Yeah. I think that I love that you said that because, as you're speaking, I'm saying almost the same things in my mind that you're saying, but ultimately I think that knowing who you are goes, yes, we want to serve our clients and the direction, like it can help with the directions that we're wanting to go. But I think that like and I'm experiencing this even now, but like within my business as it grew, there were some things that I didn't realize until I went back and did more reflection on myself and things that, were past traumas or things that were like in my, personal life, things I grew up with that influenced the decisions that I was making. And they weren't always great decisions because they were driven out of, okay, I need to have a booked calendar. Well, why do I need to have a booked calendar? And it stemmed from, needing validation for me to feel like I was worthy of something because people were wanting to work with me. But in reality, what that ended up causing is like burnout because I was so booked and I was, overworking and just trying to fill that piece of me. And then I ended up not serving my clients probably in the best capacity that I could because, again, I was coming from a place that was just stretched thin. And I think too, when you work on that foundation, it really guides you into saying, what does that revenue goal mean to me though? Am I just wanting to hit 7 figures because it's attractive, or does that really have meaning behind it? And then that's where your energy comes into play, where you're like, I don't have the energy actually to build it sustainably. It's just something that I'm building just, for various reasons.
Vanessa, we're like, I think all of us as entrepreneurs, first of all, I think it's the biggest, deepest transformation that anyone can experience being an entrepreneur. Like, yeah. Oh my gosh, like the things I have to see about myself.
Yes.
We could talk for hours about all the things I had to I sabotage myself this way. Awesome.
Unknowingly. Right? Yes.
Right. Like sometimes not even like making an offer, like simple things, or, like having a conversation with someone who was perfect and me being like, they probably don't need it.
Right.
Like it can be as simple as that, or as like not showing up online, or the other way around. Like I remember when I launched this podcast, like it's going to be 2 years now that I launched it, I went into this space of like, I started getting like, I love having guests, like just like you, right? Like who bring expertise into the space so people can learn more about like retreats, what it entails, like their marketing, right? Everything else. And I put a post out and it went crazy. Yeah. I was looking for guests and I got like, and I had no filter, nothing. It was just like, it was a pre-podcast call interview, a 1 hour pre-podcast call interview to make sure that they were the right fit. Yeah. And then I got 116 people booking in my calendar within 1 month.
Oh, the same thing happened. And I was burnt out. I was like,
Yes.
no, thank you. I don't know if that happened to you, but
Yes. Oh my God. Yes, it totally did. Like, and you know what, like I did to myself. So instead of saying like, okay, I'm just going to extend the calendar and people can book 4 months in advance, I was like, oh, people want to talk to me, I'm just going to open up more spaces. And I forgot about my boundaries. For me, I don't work on Saturdays and Sundays. Like it's my time to rest. And guess what? I opened up my calendar for Saturday. So then I was taking calls on Saturday because like the amount of calls to a point where I like spilled water on my computer.
oh no.
It took 2 or 3 weeks to fix. I call it like divine calling, right? Like first I was in meditation and I got this message that was like, it was in a tea ceremony. That was like, Lainey, you are exhausted. You need to stop.
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah.
was like,
Sometimes you have to be forced into
yeah. And I was
rest.
like, oh yeah. So I rested for the weekend, right? And I was like, and then I kept doing things. And then afterwards, I was like, I had my dog. He was like a puppy, but my dog is big. Yeah. So like 60 pounds. So, but he's still like, and we were playing outside and he hit my knee and I dislocated my knee. Another sign to stop, right? Like your knees is ego and whatnot, if we think about like Chinese medicine. So I was like, okay. So I went to the doctor. They put a cast for like 3 weeks. So they were like, and then I was in my house. I'm like, well, I need to stop. And I was still exhausted. And my mom was like, well, but you have your computer. You do everything on your computer. I'm like, oh yeah, I can still do podcast episode, even though like, my knee is in a cast. Like 3 days later, I was outside in the garden on my computer, like, legs stretched with a glass of water. And my dog came underneath the table and spilled the glass on my computer. And usually it takes like 3 days for the pieces to come and, fix them. It took 3 weeks.
Oh my God.
I was like, I hear you, God.
Yes. Yes. He was like, you're not understanding. I need to be more
Yeah.
direct.
Yeah,
I believe
exactly.
that's sometimes, I think sometimes we just kind of run ourselves ragged because we are, I don't know if you're a people pleaser, but I know that like sometimes for me, I noticed as I was building Eden and Empire, the feedback that I was getting, I wanted so badly to make it work in the initial stages that everything everybody said I was taking hold of. And they'd be like, oh, this time doesn't work with my schedule. So I was like, oh, let me open up more times. And, this piece of it I want more of. So I'm like, oh, let's open up more and do this and this and this. And ultimately I was like, no, I can't do that. I have to protect my energy, especially if you want this to grow and be sustainable. And I think that's one thing we forget very often as entrepreneurs as it grows. Like it's exciting. We're starting to see success. But then what ends up happening is it's at the cost of our, our mental health, our physical health. And sometimes we're just, for me, that's God. And God is like, nope, you need to stop. You need to slow down because there's beauty in that, right? Like there's beauty in building a business that is sustainable, that is done in a way that can honor, your energy. Because I feel like if we're coming from a place that is stretched thin, that is burnt out, you're not serving people in any way, truly. You're just doing it, like you said, from a reactive state. And it ends up showing up in multiple ways. So
yeah, and I think this is such an important message for anyone who's listening. I know like you might be thinking, but what does this have to do with like personal branding? It has everything, absolutely everything to do with personal branding, because personal branding is how you show up.
yeah.
So if you show up tired, if you show up exhausted, if you are like, you tell someone, hey, I'm going to be fulfilling in 2 days, and suddenly it took you 1 week
Yes.
because you're
Exactly.
exhausted and you can't even think or breathe or sleep or anything, right? Like you're not serving your clients. You're not fulfilling your values and the integrity of your business. And basically you're burning your brand, right?
Yes.
So I want to say,
oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Your brand is, I think a lot of people think branding is something visual, like your visual identity. Branding is all about the experience. And so what people are experiencing by working with you says everything, and that's what they walk away with. So I just wanted to add that to what you were saying, because I think
this is so important. Like, this is so important for anyone who's listening, because yes, we think branding is a brand board, right? Like colors, fonts, logo.
Yeah.
This is the thoughts of the majority of people.
Mm-hmm.
My brand book has 80 pages. But I have much over 30 brands. So I do not expect anyone to have a brand book that is 80 pages.
Yes.
From the start. Yeah. So anyone who's listening, do not think, oh my gosh, now I need to go build 80 pages. But the core piece of having it for me is to be able to have like my team execute at the level of my business.
Right.
And it's been growing. It did not start that way. Right. Mm-hmm. But it's about the placement of the logo. And it has been evolving. Now, like, we rebranded slightly. Like, we brought new pictures and new images, right? And new like look and feel, and the messaging shifted. So then the brand book, right? It's a book, right? It takes you through the process of like, I have like the reason why I started it in my brand book, right? Like, why did this business come to life? And then, yes, the colors and how you use them and the typography. But I also talk about language that you can use, language that you don't use, right? Like, and basically it's who I am. Like, I don't swear. So those words are a no in my brand. So if anyone starts like trying to create content for me that has that type of language, it doesn't agree. So it won't fly, right?
Right.
My branding is like, everything I do is based on luxury branding, right? Because I truly believe that it's like, that's my calling. Like, I used to work at the Ritz-Carlton. Like, I love it. It's part of who I am. You know, for me, like, I like to live a luxurious life, and that luxurious life can be, yes, flying on business class if you want, or first class, but a luxurious life can also mean getting a massage every week. It can mean going for walks, right? Like, luxury, it's the luxuries that you like to have in your life. So like, for anyone listening, don't think that now it's like, oh, now I need to go spend $3,000 into like becoming that person that has a Louis Vuitton.
Right.
It's about this inner feeling of like, how do you like to experience life? And then that is what you permeate to your audience, right? Yep. To your clients. Yep. That's the way you want them to feel. And in order to have that, right, the language needs to be aligned. The images needs to be aligned. The messaging needs to be aligned. Right. Who you are needs to be aligned, right? Like, who you accept as clients as well.
Yes, I think that most oftentimes as business owners, we are starting from a place that it's a personal need that we've seen or we've experienced. We take so much into our business in general. Most oftentimes that is our values, for sure. And I think the reason being is because we're trying to fill that gap. And we resonate I think most people are probably their own ideal audience, and they kind of forget that piece of it. But when it comes to building a luxury brand, there's so much that goes into it beyond just the visual identity, because the visual identity is the first piece of what most people see when they work with us. And so it has to relate to our audience. And you could be somebody who works with, construction workers, right? They probably don't have like this glamorous, overall luxurious brand. Like, that's not what most people think, but there's ways that you can incorporate that. So for example, my husband owns a landscaping company. And so what we did is we obviously niched him down. He just now works with hardscapes. The way that you exude luxury is in your messaging, is in, what people feel when they come to the website, the communication we have with our clients, welcome gifts, just little things. I think most oftentimes people forget that, like, really the differentiator or the thing that elevates an experience is like these little details that most people don't under or pay attention to, like the type of paper you're using when you send out a
Oh
thank
yeah.
you letter, or just all these little things. Like you don't have to spend a ton of money in some ways to have that over the top experience. But kind of getting to where I'm going is there's so many different elements, and most oftentimes it just relates back to how you're making people feel when they're interacting with you, and really understanding what they need from you, and you just providing that.
Yeah, I think something, for example, luxurious that people might not even consider is a handwritten note rather than a printed note.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Like it's a little difference, but it's the effort, right? It's the people being like, oh, they took the time to actually write the cards. Like I used to write personalized cards for like the events I used to run in Marriott, and like people love them. And yes, did I spend one night writing 200 cards? 100% I did.
Yeah,
Did
it's
it
just letting
make a
people.
difference? Yes.
Exactly. It's letting, first of all, people don't really get anything in the mail anymore. So that makes a big difference. They're excited for that. And then just knowing that you thought of them is what, I don't know. To me, I think that the customer service aspect of it is one of the easiest ways to really build a relationship. But I think prior to that, it's just what are you doing to show people that they're appreciated, that they can relate to you, and I don't know, enjoys that experience of connecting with your brand. So I think that's why so many people are gravitating towards building a personal brand, because they really want to connect on a deeper level with the people that they're interacting with.
Yeah. So for example, tell me like if for anyone who's listening here, if they're like thinking, okay, so I'm gonna go like dive deep into like building my personal brand and really owning my experiences, my authority, who I am, and share it with the world. What would be like the three key things that you would say these are the musts for you to in order for you to start
Are you saying start
like a
like if you're
personal
wanting
brand?
yeah, if
Like
you're wanting to elevate it?
yeah.
Okay. So the first thing that I would do is know your audience. So when you're stepping into this next space, most oftentimes people are probably going into a higher dollar amount, right? So you need to know what you have the capacity to handle, because a lot of people think, "Oh, I want to work with high-end clients." That might mean that you scale back in the hours or like clients that you're taking on, but that requires a higher touch experience from you. So you are doing more with your clients. Do you have the capacity to do that? So I would look at that first, and then you have to get into the mindset of what that client wants. Like what do they need? What type of experience can they expect from you? And then that influences your visual identity, right? I think a lot of people are like, I just want to use this brand color because it's pretty. There's color psychology associated with it. So a lot of times with luxury brands, they tend to use more muted colors, more high-end thinner fonts. Like there's so many different things. I mean, obviously other brands can use color strategically, but there are so many things that are rooted in science, and it's all based on what your audience wants to, or what your audience needs from you. So I would say figure out what you want first, what you can handle, what you have the capacity for, then understand what your audience wants from you, and then work on that brand perception as far as like your visual identity, because that's what they see first. What your clients perceive of you is generally what they're willing to pay. So if they perceive you as a high-end brand, they're going to think, okay, that probably comes with a higher dollar amount. And it's not everybody wants to work with high-end clients, but that's just my example. So don't
Oh,
think that that's the only way to go is
right. Yeah. It's like we either go for volume, or like in quality in a way, right? So either we have pre-recorded courses and we just sell a bunch.
Yeah.
And then you don't it's a system and then it's selling and then you do your thing, you go promote and that's kind of like the space. And then you can have like the quantity. And I think the capacity that you brought is so important. Like for me, for example, I only take 3 one-on-one clients per month because there is so much that I do behind the scenes for them. Like we write like the copy for the retreat pages. We do we create a costume marketing campaign based on who they are. We do market research to make sure that they're actually talking to the ideal client. We define language. Like we go through a whole big process within 3 months, that it's not just the hour that I show up and we have a discussion and we map out and we do things. The time that I take to actually execute and my team, but a lot of like when my one-on-one clients, like they get me, right? That's why they're paying the big dollar sign, because they're getting like me, my knowledge, my experience, everything that comes into. So I limit it, and I'm like 3 people per month. That's it, right? So like, and a lot of people might be like, well, I do this exercise of like finding your capacity, and people are like, I have like 20 one-on-one clients, and I'm like, well, how long does this actually take you to fulfill? Is it just 1 hour? Because if it's just a 1 hour, I still think it's a lot, but fine. You know, therapists, for example, they don't have fulfillment afterwards.
Yeah.
You can have a different like framework, but for me, fulfillment a week would take around like maybe sometimes 3 hours, 4 hours.
Yeah.
That means I'm already spending, if I have 3 clients, 12 hours a week.
I think on that end too, I think a lot of times people think that having a booked schedule is really or like having a lot of clients is
a success.
Yes. And in reality, if you have 20 one-on-one clients, you probably need to up your rates, because there is that demand there that people are seeing your worth. Now there's so much that goes into the psychology of that end of things. But I just think that like ultimately your energy levels, is that sustainable for you long term at this price? Because I think most oftentimes people are doing that because they don't think that they're able to or worth being able to charge more, and in reality you are already at that stage. So I don't know if you see that a lot with people, but I see that all the time with people I work with.
I see it more often than not. That's why, like, you know, like this podcast it's called How to Run Profitable Retreats. Because what I see a lot is people, like, I had a call with someone who was like, you know, it was a discovery call to hire me on a BAP day. So I offer those are like 2 days intensives. We get a lot of things done, right? For those who like are like, I cannot go through your 1-year program, Lainey. It's too like my retreat has to happen in 6 months, right? We just need, like, you know, and they have a lot of things already like set up, but then, you know, we need to like map it out and make sure that everything is executed. And I was having this call and I was like, okay, so I kind of do like a doctor's appointment, and I just ask a lot of questions, and, you know, and no one knows I'm going to be asking these questions before the call. So, you know, they're not coming prepared. So it's like, but I ask a lot of questions, and I'm like, okay, so how much do you want to make from your retreat, right? Like, how much, what's the profit? What is this? What is that? And I go through the whole process to really figure out where are they at. So see how what's the best way to help them.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, so what do you want to have for this retreat that you want to plan? And she's like, a 10% profit margin. And I'm like, what the hell? I mean, and I was like, how many people do you want to have? And she's like, well, like at least 7. And I said, like, okay, so if you want to make 10%, that means you need 6.3 people to pay you to cover the cost. And then the 0.7% person that is left, that's when you make money. Do you want to be working for everyone else, for the airline, for the Airbnb, for the other people who are showing up and, you know, doing the catering, for the other facilitators that are going to come help you out?
Yeah, I think that stems too from people not having any clue of their cost of doing business and just kind of running things. They think, oh, well, this is how much I'm making off of the retreat, that's fine. You know, I think that most people just don't realize all of the things. You're basically paying the people to come to your retreat. And I think that people get to a place of probably burnout because they realize that that's not sustainable for them to do all of this work and not make really
like
anything.
70% of retreat leaders do not make a profit.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's insane because it takes so much more work than putting an online course.
Yes.
I mean, if you're gonna do a retreat, might as well do it right.
I guess unless you just love community and hanging out with people and you're just wanting to do it on that end of things, but I feel like you deserve to be paid for your time, your expertise, all of these things that you are putting into making this retreat worth well, I mean, not that it wouldn't be worth it, but like it at that point in time, if you're having to basically pay people, it's like what are we doing the retreat for?
Right, exactly. And I think I want to like just like circle this around a little bit for everyone who's listening about what Vanessa is talking about, like paying people to attend your retreat. So let's take this example of like a 10% profit, just so we make it simple, right? And we stay in the same thought process. So if you're going to be making 10% and then you're just putting actually the cost of your retreats and not the cost of marketing, right? Like the 6 months of promotional campaign, the amount of hours that you pass behind social media, the emails that you have to write. Maybe you need to hire a copywriter, right? Like all these things, if they're not even in your budget, and most times people do not put them, people do not measure how many hours they're going to spend on social media promoting. Like you do not put the cost of your time for the discovery call, for example, right? And then you do not have the numbers of like the conversion rate. And I know I'm going a little bit technical for all of you, but all of you amazing people in how to run profitable retreats, we are up leveling our game, and we're like talking a lot more about numbers and data and what happens and whatnot, because like I want people to make more money. So we're picking it up a notch for sure. But like even the cost of running a discovery call, it costs you money to run that discovery call, from generating the lead for them actually to show up. It costs you also if people do not show up, right? Because it's time that you're leaving behind. And then let's imagine that you have a 20% conversion rate. That means you need to talk to 10 people in order to get 2 people to sign up. So these other 8 people are also part of your cost of running this retreat. So if you do not take this into consideration, what happens is you're having so many costs before the retreat even takes place that you are paying people to attend your retreat, because these 10% will not cover those expenses that you came into before the retreat even took place.
Right. I mean, just in general, I think that people forget that their time is part of that. And you having to go out and do all of those things, that's time that could have been allocated towards any other part of your business. But I think also people forget like the Zoom that you're on, that potentially costs money. The social media platform that you're using when you're paying for ads, or maybe you're potentially just paying for editing tools. Like there's so many things that go into the cost of running your business that I think that people are like, that part of it, that's minimal. That's this, that's that. And it's like, no, you have to factor that piece of it into, more than anything, your time. I think people just don't account for or even know what that even looks like.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And and I think this is one of the premises of like what I always talk about. And like that's why I always talk about like create a 6-figure retreat business. Very, very clear to the business. Like you need to run your business like a business, not like a hobby. And when we're starting, like sometimes we don't, because we're just like trying to get things out there, or maybe we don't have the business knowledge to actually do it, right? And that's why coaches are out there that can help you skip the line, so you can actually don't have to go and test everything yourself for years and years and years to see if it actually works out, right? There's also books, like there's so many ways on how you can get there faster. But I think something that also comes here into this space is like when we are talking about, like running your business like a business, and there might be this misconception when we think about a personal brand. And I think this is something that I just felt like I had to bring up right now, that you might think because it's a personal brand, then it's not, that does not equal a business. It's more like I have a personal brand, so then I'm more like a freelancer, or I'm exchanging money for hours. When the reality is that a personal brand, think about Kim Kardashian. She has a personal brand. Like she's a massive example of personal branding, right? From the moment where, like her sex tape was leaked. She created a brand of this like enticing woman, right? Like the woman, like it worked for her, right? I'm not saying go and do that for your business, okay? Please, everyone who's listening to this, but it worked. And then she shifted, right? Like even her wedding, like how they dealt when like someone stole her ring, and I stopped following that like the brand like many years ago, but now she has like Skims, right? And it was like it's a collaboration with this amazing woman that I forgot her name, that I was listening to, like again a podcast episode on the CEO Diary, and she's a co-founder of Skims, and they use like influencers to like co-brand, right, co-launch, right, and use their personal branding as part of the visuals, right? It's like George Clooney had this one that I love. It's called Whispering Angel from Friends, right? So like he's the face of the brand, and because of he's the face of the brand, he owns a piece of the business. Anyway, I do not want to go deep into this topic of like now what it's like influencer branding and whatnot, but in the space of personal branding, look at the people out there that are big, that have made it, just as an example. I'm not saying replicate them, yeah,
right,
but if we look at them, we need to see that they actually have a business behind it. Even though it's a personal brand. So don't get confused that a personal brand means, oh, it's just me, myself, and I.
Yeah, you are still running your business. You actually, personal brands, yes, you are connecting on a deeper level with your audience, but it needs to be strategic. Like, I don't mean calculated in a sense of manipulation, but if you're going to be sharing, I think a lot of times too, people equate personal branding means that I have to share myself and I have to share every piece of me. No, you share what makes the most sense for your brand, what you're willing to share. And I think most oftentimes with that, people forget that, yes, there is a business behind it. So there does need to be a meaning behind why you're sharing certain pieces of what you're sharing. And it has to make sense for your brand, right? There's a lot of times where these influencers share or take on a campaign because it means money, and it has nothing to do with their brand, and their audience gets so thrown off, or it leaves a bad taste in their mouth because it's not authentic to everything that they've been sharing previously. And so I think obviously knowing who you are, you're going to know what pieces of it to share, but it has to make sense for your business because ultimately that's why you're doing it.
Yeah. So actually, I have a great example about this and how we need to think about our personal brands long term. And so I was in Vegas. We went to an event called Broadcast Your Authority, absolutely amazing, with like Tamara Thompson. And we went out to a karaoke bar, right? So one of the guys who was in the event, he was like they gave me a tour of Vegas because it was my first time there, right? So they're like, oh my gosh, no, you need to go see like places. So we went to the Cosmopolitan, the Bellagio, and all these things. And then suddenly we're walking and there is this like place that has a karaoke bar, and it's like the second night of the event. So he's like, let's go. And I'm like, okay. And then, so we grabbed a crew of like, we were actually, I think at the end, we were like 12 people from the event. And then we all went to this karaoke bar. And it's a speakeasy karaoke. Yeah. So we go through the process of like going through a barber shop to then enter actually the place where the live music and karaoke was happening. And they like there is this hostesses and they're like, hey, can we take a picture of all of you with like, and there was a bottle of vodka or something like that. And they tried to give it to me. And I was like, and first of all, I do not drink vodka. I drink wine and that's it for now, right? And I don't even know in the future, but like I was like, okay. And I was like, no, thank you. And they were like, but it's okay. And people around me, like the people in the conference, they were asking me like, why don't you, like, it's just a picture. And I said, I'm thinking about my personal brand in 10 years. Does my future self is in pictures with like, I don't mind the picture, right? There could be a bottle of vodka next to it. Like, but does my future self holds a bottle of vodka in her hands?
Right. What image are you wanting to portray? Exactly.
Right. So then it was fine. Someone else grabbed the picture. There wasn't like, it's not even tagged, but I know, like, I already have enough pictures from my June.
Yeah. I mean,
picture.
Right. I think that, I could use that example too. It would be, I don't drink and I don't publicize that, but I used to, I just don't anymore. Now I'm not interested in it, but I feel like it would be weird if I talk about not drinking and then I was out, on the beach holding a drink, or, I was taking pictures like that holding a drink, not because there's anything wrong with it, but I feel like what ends up happening is that it causes confusion in my audience, in that doesn't make sense. She's all about, it's kind of like J-Lo. Um, I think that's who it was. She she started this brand of, or like, she sells this alcohol, and at the time she was married to Ben Affleck, and is like, he doesn't drink, why are you promoting a brand that has that? Or I want to say
Right.
there was another artist that did that, and they're like, you don't even drink, that doesn't make sense. I think J-Lo doesn't drink, maybe, and that's why it didn't make sense.
Hmm.
But I think it just causes confusion, and it makes people wonder, like, why this piece isn't authentic to what you're trying to portray.
I think this is like, yeah, this is such a, and I think you nailed it when you spoke about confusion.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have this unconscious pattern of trying to confuse people about who we are, who we serve, what we do,
Yeah.
and how we do it.
Yeah.
Because we just want to serve, and it goes back down to the niching, right? We just want to serve everyone. Like, I tell people, you do not have to wear like 20 hats. It's not your role to be an expert in marketing, business, finances, budgeting, ads, digital marketing, CRMs, SEO. Like, no.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, maybe at the beginning you need to learn a lot more than others, right? And you cannot go out and hire everyone, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars when your product, your services haven't been even tested.
Right.
But you do need to think about it, like, how can I, like, how can I make it simple so I can then like have the phases and then have a finance, like, a plan of expansion, and know that these are the expenses that are going to come through in the future.
I think one of the things that pops up for me too is it kind of ties back to what we were talking about in the beginning. The thing about, like, AI, or even when you hire out a team, if you're not clear on who you are and how to portray yourself online, it's going to cause confusion, right? Like, if you have a team that's posting and promoting, or a copywriter and all of these things, you can't hand them, this is my brand, but your brand is 20 different things. And you also can't, like, AI, the thing about AI that I think people forget is it's just prompted. So whatever you prompt it to do is what it's going to do. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what you want it to do, or that will actually be accurate. It's just based on what you've told it. So then that's all it has to go off of. So if you've told it something that isn't 100% accurate, or it's not detailed enough, is not necessarily going to give you what you need, and it may not be authentic to your brand. A lot of times, I mean, even at the bottom it says AI is or whomever you're using, like, it's subject to mistakes. So make sure that you go back in and you proofread that. And if you're not clear on those things, it can confuse your audience, right? Because you have AI telling it one thing, you're saying one thing, your team's saying something else. Or I could just prompt AI and it could sound like, a 30-year-old man one day, and then the next day it could sound like my authentic voice, or it could sound like a robot. So I think that's really important too within your branding, is just stay consistent for sure everywhere you're at. That way you don't confuse people.
Oh, I think this is so great. And we're going to be wrapping up in a second, but I just want to bring this to all of you who are listening to this episode. Just let's try to bring together a little bit of like the ideas here. Like, one of the biggest things that we can see is, like, you need to know who you are. What are your foundations, like who you are as a person, and your business is an extension of who you are.
Right.
You need to be ready to know that in the future, your ideal client will change. You need to know your ideal client. You need to befriend your ideal client. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you really do. Like, it needs to become like your freaking best friend, and know them, like, they
basically a stalker. Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. A little bit like a stalker, right? That's why I do like so much market research all the time, because I'm just like so curious, right? So and I'm like, okay, so we have to, like, foundations, right? And then we have to have, like, like a clear, like, niche, like a specialty. We need to understand who we're talking to. And that takes us towards, like, a very, very clear message of, like, who you are, how do you show up, and who you serve.
Right.
I think it's very, very important. And as another piece, you need to also understand that at the end of the day, you need to run your business like a business. Even if you're for like the front of your, like let's imagine this is like an actual shop on the streets, like a brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Even the face, the part outside of your store is your personal brand. Behind it's an actual business.
Right.
And I think also something very important that you said is you need to understand your capacity for clients so you don't burn out and you don't go crazy, and go at your pace.
Right.
Right. I think this is very, very important. Go at your pace. If you're not ready to be on like 3,000 podcasts as a guest, we'll start with one.
Right. Exactly. I think all of those are really important to just helping drive you to building that sustainable business, because it's all rooted in your values, your capacity, and just knowing who you are. So I love that. I do think that summarizes it. I don't know that I could have. So
well, Vanessa has a gift for all of you. So it's a brand assessment. You can have the link to actually go get it on the show notes. Yeah. So if you're like wondering, well, where does my brand stand out there? She has like this amazing quiz. You can go do it, get the results. It's absolutely amazing. So I highly recommend you if you're like, well, I'm not so sure if my brand is actually there where it's supposed to be. Like, make sure you go and get it. And then Vanessa, if people want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
honestly, I would probably say my podcast, the Eden Edit, just because I give tips on branding and marketing and just really finding who you are. So I think that's probably the one that I would shout out just based on our conversation today. But
oh yes, I love it. I think this is so great. Well, amazing people listening to this podcast episode. I hope you really, really enjoyed it. I was so excited to have you here, Vanessa. And it's just so powerful for all of us to really learn about the foundations of our business. And, if you like this episode, go ahead and subscribe so we can share the message with more people. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.